Welcome to the Dental Business Guide podcast. From money to marketing to management, this podcast will help you run a better dental business.
Welcome back to the Dental Business Podcast. I'm Arun Mehra, and today I'm going to be updating you and talking to you about the last 12 months since the first outbreak of COVID, but also what the future holds in the UK dental business. Now, 12 months has flown by in many instances, okay? We've seen a lot of change in the UK dental industry. And if we look back at 12 months ago, we were just going into lockdown, clinics were closing or closed, and it was a very uncertain, trying time. They were closed for a few months. People weren't sure whether they could, the dentists weren't sure they could open up their clinics again. And what the timeline would be. There was a lot of confusion about is the CQC allowing clinics to open or not open. Some private practices were opening, others weren't. NHS contracts were kind of halted or suspended in mid-motion. And we saw a lot of change and a lot of uncertainty. Now, we're now 12 months out of that, and certainly things have improved. There's certainly more certainty out there. And I think one of the big changes that we saw over the last 12 months was more and more practices, well, individuals, perhaps in the last 3 to 6 months, getting in touch with us, wanting to open up or buy their own dental practice. Now, what we saw last year was a lot of dental associates disgruntled, upset, concerned about their welfare and how they'd been treated by some of their dental principals. So they have now kind of come back to the market and raring to go. And I have to say, we're getting maybe 2 or 3 inquiries a week for people wanting to open up a clinic. Not necessarily buy, but open up a clinic themselves. Now, will all of them do that? No, of course they won't, okay? Because opening up a clinic is a minefield. And again, in an increasingly competitive market, it's going to get harder. But going forward now, I think from where we're sitting and standing here in this UK market, I think private has really seen a real benefit. Whilst there was uncertainty at the beginning or during that first initial lockdown, since NHS contracts were not changed, but in terms of the increased fallow time and the restrictions placed on NHS practices, I think private practices have benefited hugely. I talked to private clinics all dotted around the UK, and they're busy. Of course, they have to manage fallow time. Of course, they had to invest in further PPE. Of course, they've had to change how they run their businesses. But in a nutshell, their turnover tends to be higher. They're seeing more patients, and they're having happy patients, and they're having a strong time. Who would have thought that 12 months on from this lockdown? So now going forward, what's going to happen? So I guess in my mind, I'm thinking that private will continue strong. There's still certain uncertainty about what will happen with the NHS and what contract fulfillment will have to be done, and is there going to be a change in the contract? No one knows, and my guess is as good as anyone else's. But I think patients, have really seen the difference in the last 12 months. If they couldn't get hold of their NHS practice, they've gone to private, and they're willing to pay. And they're willing to pay higher fees just to get out of pain, or to look better, or to change how their teeth look. People have had disposable income available since they can't go on holiday. They can't spend on much due to many things being closed. So where do they spend that money? They can spend it on themselves. And the Zoom effect or Microsoft Teams effect, where people are in front of a screen all day, they want to have their teeth and they want to look better in front of their colleagues or work colleagues. So I think this will continue, okay? I think the times of everyone going back to what the office will change. I know myself included are fed up of being at home, sitting in a room, talking to everyone over a screen. However, I cannot wait to get back to the office. So there will be some type of hybrid model in my mind where people will work a couple of days in the office and a large proportion of the week at home. Therefore, the need for good-looking teeth, healthy teeth, will be there. Now, will this last for a long time? Or maybe as things open up, the availability where people can spend their money may change on clothes, holidays, that type of thing. So that may have an impact a little bit on the private market. But as I've spoken to so many dentists who are in the private sector, they're making hay while the sun shines, and I certainly would recommend that. Now, going forward, I think as I mentioned earlier, the startup market is where there's a lot of demand for people to start up and do their own thing and be in control of their own destiny. Obviously, the banks are always a little bit slow in coming to market, and they're a little bit hesitant with what's happened with COVID. But for decent proposals with people who have some kind of assets in the background, I'm pretty sure the banks will start lending and start offering good financing deals to startups out there, like they do for people who want to buy a practice. One of the other issues I guess people have we're seeing amongst our clinics, this is more amongst the NHS clinics in I suppose not in the main urban areas, where they're struggling still to fulfill the contracts because they cannot find associates to fulfill those contracts. So that's a challenge that will always be there. And I think that's an overspill from Brexit as well, where many European dentists may have left the country just prior to the pandemic. So in all, I personally think the dental sector is strong, it's resilient, there's opportunity out there, whether you're looking to start, whether you're looking to buy, or whether you're looking to acquire further. I certainly think there is strong demand from patients, and then strong demand for to look good, to have healthy teeth. And so I think dentistry certainly raised its profile in this last 12 months, albeit a very, very difficult 12 months. And I think it goes back to the tenacity and the hard grittedness of dentists out there who are by nature hardworking, intelligent, but also pretty entrepreneurial when the chips are down. So if I was a betting man, 12 months from now, I think the general dental market in the UK, assuming there are no further lockdowns, is just going to get stronger. Okay, more and more private market. I think more and more dentists will want to leave the NHS, or the younger dentists in particular that I speak to don't even really want to be doing much within the NHS sector. They want to do the other types of treatment. They want to work in private clinics as they see the possibilities and the opportunities that are out there. So I think in 12 months' time, we'll see a market that's growing. There'll be more squats and more startups, more brands, more dental practices out there in the marketplace. Certainly there'll be that, but then the good ones will do well and survive, and the ones that aren't so good or struggle, or who cannot get the marketing right, will have to kind of sink to the bottom, unfortunately. That's the nature of a competitive marketplace. Now, if you need help or any advice or tips on anything that I've spoken to today, or got any feedback on what you're seeing in the dental marketplace, give me a shout. Happy to talk to you. Even come on the podcast. We can certainly share our thoughts and views, and it'd be great to hear what your experiences are. So that's for me today. I hope you enjoyed this podcast, and look forward to speaking to you soon on the Dental Business Podcast. Cheers.
Thanks for listening in to the Dental Business Guide podcast. We welcome your feedback, and if you're enjoying it, please let your friends know too. Until the next time on the Dental Business Guide podcast.